A Brooklyn man is free again after spending nearly a quarter of a century behind bars for a murder he did not commit. Jonathan Fleming was released yesterday after serving 24.5 years in prison for the shooting death of a man in 1989. The 51-year-old was convicted despite his claim that he was at Disney World when the killing took place. An investigation recently turned up evidence that was never shown at trial. That evidence included a receipt showing that Fleming paid a hotel phone bill in Florida just hours before the murder. Fleming's lawyers believe the receipt was intentionally not given to his original attorneys.
That's never turned over to the defense team.
So he was
How is
framed.
that a mistake? I'm not saying he was framed. What I'm saying is it couldn't possibly be a mistake.
I waited for this day to come 24.5 years for this nightmare to be over, and this day is finally here. I dreamt about this many nights, and I'm finally a free man.
Fleming's release came after his case was reviewed by the Brooklyn District Attorney's Conviction Review Unit.
What's good, y'all? What's the Numbers TV? It's your boy Paul Rowe. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, and like a video if you appreciate the content that Paul Rowe and What's the Numbers I provided. Today we back with another profile piece. This one is on Jonathan Hook Fleming. In this video we're going to talk about his early years coming up in Brooklyn. Then we'll break down the crime that Hook was wrongly convicted of, which forced him to spend decades in prison. After that, we will speak about the process that ended up getting Hook released from prison and awarded millions of dollars in compensation. Then, we will focus on his life after prison, which included moving down south, buying a condo to live in, along with owning a sports lounge he named after himself. And lastly, we will bring you up to speed on what Hook got going on today and where he currently resides. Jonathan Fleming, also known as Hook, is from Brooklyn, New York. He grew up in the Marcy Projects back in the 70s and 80s and was well known among his peers. Hook would dive into the streets at a fairly young age, and by his late teens, early 20s, was pretty well established in the drug game. He was a flashy dresser who always wore the latest garments and lots of jewelry. He also had a few run-ins with the law, with one being for robbery. In August of 1989, Daryl Rush, aka Black, would be killed outside of a housing project in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, over some stolen money allegedly. Hook, who was in Florida at the time, would get arrested for the murder a couple days later, even though he had a well-documented alibi. Hook always claimed his innocence and said that he and Daryl were actually friends. But even with all the evidence Hook had along with his family backing his story up, prosecutors were still able to convict him on murder at his trial in July 1990 with the help of some questionable witnesses. Hook, who was 27 years old at the time, was sentenced to 25 to life for the murder of Daryl Rush, and for the next 24 years and 7 months, Hook was stuck in prison, serving time for a crime he didn't commit. It wasn't until April of 2014 that a judge would release Hook from prison after numerous witnesses recanted their statement and a receipt from a Florida hotel hours before the murder was discovered. The receipt was never entered as evidence for the case and kept from his defense attorneys until decades later when the Conviction Integrity Unit found the Jonathan Hook Fleming original case file and its contents. Now free, Hook re-entered society as a 51-year-old man with no real skills or money to succeed in today's day and age. His story was picked up by numerous media outlets, which garnered him enough attention for an internet campaign to be started on his behalf, which raised about $50,000 to help Hook get back on his feet. Then, in June of 2015, Hook was awarded $6.2 million for his wrongful conviction in a settlement with New York City. He also filed a claim with the New York Court of Claims that was settled for $3.4 million, for a total of $9.6 million in compensation money. From there, Hook would relocate to Raleigh, North Carolina, where he bought a condo in one of the nicest buildings in downtown Raleigh. He also started a foundation to help other wrongfully convicted people retain attorneys. Hook then got involved in the party and club business, and in 2020, he opened up a sports lounge and grill called Jonathan's in Raleigh, North Carolina. At the time, the world was still dealing with the pandemic, so business took a while to pick up. But by January of 2022, Jonathan's was a well-known party spot in the city and would even have some celebrity guests pull up from time to time. From the outside looking in, things looked to be going great for Hook as he made his reintegration into society after almost 25 years behind bars. But what happened next caught everybody by surprise when in late 2022, Hook was arrested for conspiracy to commit wire fraud for fraudulently obtaining PPP loans. Hook, rather than taking a trial, will end up pleading guilty in February 2023 to the charges against him and is facing up to 20 years when sentenced. But yo, What's the Numbers TV is a quick profile piece on Jonathan Hook Fleming out of Brooklyn, Marcy Projects. Now, you know, a lot of the OGs, some that's on YouTube, some in the streets, a lot of them mention Hook, a lot of them salute Hook. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, he went to jail in the 80s. A lot of some of these dudes caught their long bids in the 90s and all that. So he was a little older than, you know, some of the OGs that's out right now. And they all look up, they all speak highly of him. You know, certain dudes, even like the CK talks about Jonathan's in North Carolina and him going to the spot, things like that. Different dudes from Harlem used to frequent that spot or throw parties there. They used to book acts in the for Jonathan's as far as like different rappers and, you know, entertainers, things like that. So it was definitely doing its thing. But I guess when the whole pandemic thing hit, and you know the free money that was getting taken by a lot of different people, I guess somehow it fell into the lap of Hook, and he ended up, you know, getting involved in that situation, which caused him to catch this new charge with the feds as far as like for, you know, fraudulent loans and things like that. Now he's currently in jail waiting to be sentenced. Now hopefully, you know, being that this wasn't like a murder, you know, something that he got wrongfully convicted of before, this is like some white collar crime. You know, I know he's facing 20, but maybe the judge, you know, give him some leniency, being that this dude did all that time in jail. He comes home to millions of dollars. Now, maybe the money was getting low. Maybe his settlement money was getting a little low. He ran through it. He spent a lot and, you know, didn't want to go back to being broke. So he ended up, you know, diving into this PPP loan fraud. You know, maybe the judge will take some consideration as far as like this man losing 25 years of his life to come home into some millions to, you know, getting involved with this fraud and all that. So we gotta wait and see, as you know, he hasn't been sentenced yet, but hopefully things work out for the better. Now he got out his first time when he got out released. It was basically 8 days before he was scheduled to see his first parole board. So he did almost 25 years after being sentenced to 25 to life. He was coming up for his first parole board, and he gets out as far as like on the technicality, not on some, you know, newfound evidence that was there from the beginning. So what did they frame him? Was it a conspiracy? It's obviously they suppressed evidence. So it's just a lot going on with this case. And it was good to see somebody come home for something that they didn't do. Yeah, granted, it took a long time. But to finally see that man home, you know, with his family and things like that was a blessing. And he also, you know, opened up spots, you know, down south that, you know, brought other people together. Like, you know, the club and the lounge. And before he had Jonathan's, he was involved in other spots. So, you know, he put his money into things that brought a party and brought a good vibe to others. So it wasn't like he was just super selfish with his bread and all that, because like I said, he opened his doors to a lot of different promoters that would throw parties at Jonathan's, and that's a fact. So like I said, man, hopefully things work out for the better, because was 9.6 million even enough? Really, you did 25 years behind in jail. You lost your 20, your end of your 20s, your whole 30s, your 40s to come home at 51 years old. It's like, is that enough? Yeah, I got close to 10 million. But I just lost 30 years. Some of my best years is behind me at this point. Probably most of my best years are behind me as far as like physically and things like that. So like we gotta wait and see what happens to really get a full grasp of this story to see where it ends, or if he's gonna have another chance to come home and be with his family. You know, right now he's 60 years old, facing 20 years. So we just gotta wait and see, man. But shout out to Hook. You know what I'm saying? Jonathan Fleming, Brooklyn OG, was out in North Carolina. Shout out to Raleigh, doing his thing out there, you know, creating businesses and things like that. And on that note, man, this is What's the Numbers TV, man. It's your boy Poro. We 91,000 strong. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure y'all subscribe. Also, we got the live stream and clips channel. We about to be monetized over there. Once we get monetized, we got a whole bunch of new content coming over there. So make sure y'all subscribe to the live stream and clips channel. And on that note, follow the Instagram, What's the Numbers TV. Follow Batty Bills on IG. Any business, holla, What's the Numbers TV at yahoo.com. And on that note, I'm out of here, man. Poro, What's the Numbers TV. Peace.